We got a massive matchup coming up here. You got the USC Trojans taking on the Michigan Wolverines, the number 11 ranked team against the number 18 ranked team. And this is a game that I think coming into the season, I was a lot more hyped for than at this point. And it's not because of USC. And I shouldn't even say that, honestly, because I'm excited for this matchup. Probably more than any other game coming into this week. But you got a team, a powerhouse in USC. On the offensive side, that just dominated anybody at any point. But on the defensive side, these guys couldn't stop anyone. That was historically speaking because this year, Anthony Lynn has that defense rolling. At the same time, Michigan has a quarterback change, and we're going to talk about how this could impact not only USC, but Michigan on the offensive side. I'm excited to talk about this one, man. Overall, just right off the bat, I think USC wins this game. To me, USC is too good of a football team on the offensive side. Miller Moss is probably the best quarterback in the country at this point. And even more than that, I think the USC offensive line's absolutely overlooked. We're going to get into all that a little bit later on. But first, let's go ahead and start right away with the big news that I think has come out over the past couple of days. Alex Orji, the backup quarterback for Michigan, is officially taken over. Michigan's head coach announced just yesterday that Davis Warren is essentially going to be replaced this week. Warren was a very, very interesting story, right? He walked onto Michigan. He did a pretty good job. He showed some flashes in the past, but he really wasn't able to put it together. Had an awful game against Arkansas State. Arkansas State had no business being that close to Michigan. Michigan was such a better team, up and down the roster. And the quarterback position really held him back. And then Alex Orji obviously ended up playing a little bit last week. He was okay, but I still feel like Michigan struggles a little bit at the quarterback position. But going into this week, you now have a full week to essentially prepare for USC, right? You have this quarterback that now you can kind of get ready, potentially mold him into the type of quarterback you want him to be going up against USC. Plus, you're able to actually scheme how you want to attack USC. And I'm pretty sure Michigan's going to come out and say, we're going to run the football. Right then, so we're going to get Donovan Edwards the football. We're going to try to pound the ball. And we're going to get physical with the USC defense that has struggled in the past. But it's a defense that's looked a lot better recently. I'm pretty sure Michigan's going to want to try to run the football because, in my opinion, Michigan is just not good through the air, man. They struggle. They literally have no passing attack right now. And maybe the change of quarterback does change that up a little bit. But you can even take a step further than that, man. Michigan's playmakers through the air have not looked good this season. Their best player is a tight end in Colston Loveland, and that too, Loveland's questionable going into this next week. He had a lower leg injury last week. I think it was his left knee. He had this injury that kind of came up last week, and he hasn't been practicing, right? So it is Tuesday as of this recording, and the most recent update we had is the injury's not as bad as they initially had thought, but they're still not sure if he's going to play. He'll be questionable. To me, I like Loveland. I think he's a really, really good tight end prospect coming out for the NFL draft. He's a very good tight end, generally speaking. But he's their best playmaker. And to me, I think with the way USC is kind of constructed, USC has a phenomenal safety on that side of the football in Kamari Ramsey. To me, this guy is an absolute stud of a safety. The guy's been making plays all year, and I feel like one of the things that sometimes happens is people don't watch tape. So you don't generally see like the defensive backs, you don't see the corners, you don't see the route concepts downfield. And oftentimes when their safeties are legit, you might not recognize that unless guys are making tackles in the backfield, unless guys are blowing plays up in the backfield, which generally as a safety you're not really doing. But I felt like Ramsey has looked really, really solid. I think for USC it's a great matchup, right? If the opposing player on the opposing team, if you're a tight end and that's the best weapon you have, I think that kind of matches up well with what USC is trying to do. Plus, I also think on the defensive side, USC has some good defensive tackles. One of the guys that I really like that does not get the credit that he deserves is going to be Bear Alexander. I think most USC fans probably know Bear Alexander and his background, but if you're not a USC fan or if you don't pay close enough attention, Bear Alexander, man, I think he's going to be an absolute superstar. I know it hasn't really worked out so far this year, but I do think that coming up in week 3, as we kind of start going, or the third game, and as we kind of start going forward, I think he's going to start to flash a little bit more. Bear Alexander played alongside Jalen Carter, and Bear Alexander played like 600-700 snaps. His very, very first year in college, true freshman, started for Georgia. I don't know if he started, but he played a lot of snaps, right? 700-800 snaps his freshman year. He was a dominant player next to Jalen Carter for Georgia, and they ended up winning a national championship. And Bear Alexander was a big part of that. to me, Bear Alexander is a phenomenal football player. Right? I think he has all the potential to be a really, really good player, and I want to see more from him as we go up against Michigan. But I think the one thing for USC is you can get heavy against Michigan. You know, Michigan wants to run the football. They're going to want to come out in 12 personnel. They'll run some 13 personnel. They're going to want to run the football, and I think for USC, that's a favorable matchup because you have Bear Alexander. He's not even your starting defensive tackle technically, right? I think he's really that first rotation. But Gavin Myers is a phenomenal run defender. You got a guy, Nate Clifton, another really, really solid defensive tackle. To me, what USC has on the interior defensive line is a group of guys that can all kind of rotate in, and I would be, I would be shocked if Michigan is able to run the football on the USC front seven, right? I think Michigan has a good offensive line, but I think USC also has a really, really good defensive line. And I think it's an underrated defensive line as well. Now, I do think that Michigan, basically from the right guard to the left tackle position, have pretty good offensive linemen. I think their left tackle specifically, Milton, is a potential NFL draft caliber player. Their right tackle right now is a redshirt freshman. I think USC has to take advantage of that matchup right there. Evan Link is the starting right tackle of Michigan. You know, is Anthony Lucas the best pass rusher that USC has, or is it Braylon Shelby, or is it someone else? Whoever it is, put that guy on Evan Link and let that guy go to work. To me, you got to take advantage of that matchup. Now, here's the thing. Michigan's going to want to run the football, but they will be in situations where it's 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, and those are the moments you got to take advantage of that right tackle. This is a guy that's inexperienced up to this point. He's given up the most pressure for Michigan. And to me, I think that's just the matchup you got to be able to take advantage of. And Anthony Lynn's done a phenomenal job, right? Let's just say it how it is. Lynn comes over from the Baltimore Ravens. I think he was their secondary coach. And I think that also explains why USC has a really, really good secondary, specifically with a guy like Kamari Ramsey, right? He's a safety. I could see Lynn having a little bit of impact, right? He's a safeties coach from the NFL coming over, running the defense. But one of the things I want to see is I want to see Anthony Lucas or Braylon Shelby. I want to see one of these guys line up at that right tackle position. Just go to work, right? And see if they can kind of exploit that match going against Evan Link. Now, I do think there's a chance that if Michigan is able to run the football and have success running, they will be able to control the clock and potentially win over USC. I don't think this can actually end up happening. I was very excited for Texas, Michigan. I thought that was like the matchup of the year, but that was, we learned really quickly that Michigan on the offensive side just doesn't have enough firepower. Now, flipping it to the other side, let's talk about, I think, you got two powerhouses. Let's just say it what it is. Michigan has arguably one of the best defensive tackles. They have arguably one of the best cornerbacks, and they have some good playmakers just across the board, right? They have some good linebackers, some other good defensive linemen. Kenneth Grant is pretty solid. It's not just Mason Graham, right? Mason Graham's getting all the hype. Kenneth Grant's pretty damn good himself. And then you got Will Johnson. And the thing with USC that I like is USC's not absolutely, heavy loaded with one or two guys. You have Miller Moss, phenomenal quarterback. I think he's the best quarterback in the country. I don't know if I already said that, but Miller Moss to me, if I'm the Carolina Panthers and I need a quarterback, Miller Moss is the guy I'm taking, man. Whoever picks number 1 overall, whoever needs quarterback, Miller Moss is the guy that I'm taking. Now, Miller Moss might not even come out, right? There's a chance he still stays in college for one more year. Some people think he can. I think it just depends on how his season kind of goes. If he does choose to come out at the end of this year, I think he's the best quarterback. Now, obviously, you have to continue to prove that as we kind of go forward. But the guy's having a really good season, right? USC obviously has won all their games. More than USC winning their games. Another thing with Miller Moss is the guy has made a ton of big-time throws. 48 of 67, 72% completion percentage, 600 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's going to be interesting to see what this guy does coming up against the Michigan defense. I do think that the one thing that Michigan might not be prepared for is the fact that USC has a ton of playmakers. USC can run the football. And the thing I like about with USC's run game is they can come at you with both power and zone runs, right? So on one play, they'll pull their tackle, they'll pull their guard, and they'll run power. And then at the same time, they'll hit you with the counter, which is another power concept. And then on the third or fourth play, they might hit you with the wide zone concept or an inside zone concept, right? USC keeps you guessing on the different concepts. And just that alone, when your run game has all these different elements to it, you don't know, is that center going to back block or is that center going to reach the 3 technique? You don't know, right? So it kind of keeps you thinking in its own self. And I think that's one of the things with USC that allows their run game to be so effective. Woody Marks averages 5.9 yards per attempt. Quentin Joyner, 6.9 yards per attempt. Even the backup running backs, right? Byron Jackson as well as Peterson, essentially together average about 5.4 yards per attempt, right? To me, the running game is very, very hard to stop in its own right. And then you have a great quarterback in Miller Moss who gets his weapons the football. And let's talk about Zakarian Branch a little bit. Branch is obviously still very, very young, right? He has a lot of college football that he'll end up playing, but I think Zakarian Branch is an absolute playmaker, right? He's a game-changing type of player. Now, the thing with Branch is he's not only going to beat you downfield. You can give him, he'll be lined up in the slot. You put him in motion, hand him the football. And even if you don't hand him the football, just putting him in motion, man, it makes that secondary start to think, right? You got all that eye candy going on in the backfield. Zakarian Branch is, in my opinion, one of the best wide receivers in the country. I think there's a real chance that by the time this season comes to an end, Branch is going to end up being one of the top wide receivers statistically in the country. Right now, statistically, he's not even one of the top 3 guys in terms of yards, right, from the receivers. But I think Zakarian Branch is I think he's just different, man. I really, really do think he's one of those guys that's just different. But USC has a ton of playmakers, right? It's not just Branch, right? You got some guys at the tight end position, got some running backs that can catch out of the backfield, right? Woody Marks has done a phenomenal job, 6 catches out of the backfield. That's pretty damn impressive. To me, one of the things that USC is going to have to do against Michigan is they're going to have to set the tone early, because Michigan's going to want to, they're going to want to not only get after the quarterback with the pass rush, but if you're USC and you're coming out there and you say, we're going to 5-man pass protect, we're going to spread the ball out, that's going to favor Michigan. So I think one of the things USC is going to have to do a little bit that might be a little bit different than what they normally do is come out in more 11 personnel, right? They're going to have to commit to running the football just a little bit more. I'm not saying change up your entire offensive approach, but they have to run the ball a little bit more. And, definitely make sure you know where some of those defensive players are for Michigan. Josiah Stewart's another guy from Michigan that's kind of broken out a little bit. I think he's a senior. I think he actually just transferred to them from Coastal Carolina. He may have transferred 2 years ago, though. But I don't think he played at all last year. But Josiah Stewart, defenseman, you got to keep an eye on this guy, right? And that doesn't include guys like Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, both might end up being first-round picks. Josiah Stewart might be a top 2-round guy, right? So to me, Michigan's going to want to try to get after the quarterback a little bit, and they have the guys to do it. But I will say this. I think USC's offensive line is one of the most underrated offensive lines in all of college football. I think USC has the best center in college, right? I think he'll be the number 1 center when he comes out. I think there's a chance that Jonah Monheim will end up being a first-round pick. I think there's a chance. He'll definitely be the first center taken. I don't think there's any questions about that. The guy's a superstar caliber center. When I watched him at left tackle last year, I thought, man, this guy's a damn good left tackle as well, Obviously, he doesn't have the arm length to be an NFL caliber left tackle, but you just see the potential with this guy, right? And he's been really, really good for USC this year. A lot of the big runs that USC has came on the back of Monheim. So he's a guy to just kind of keep an eye on. And I think generally speaking, USC's, from center to left tackle, right? Those 3 guys are absolutely incredible. Emmanuel Pregnon at left guard is very solid. Elijah Page at left tackle is very, very solid. Page is young, right? So just kind of keep in mind he's on the younger side. But I think USC has a phenomenal left side of the offensive line and center as well. So expect some runs on that side, which also means expect Michigan to put their best defensive players towards the right guard and essentially right tackle. Expect Josiah Stewart to line up over the right tackle. Expect Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham to line up over the right guard, right, in that 3 technique. Expect them to put their other defensive tackle maybe right over the center so you have real, true one-on-one opportunities with the right side of the offensive line. Not that I think the USC offensive line is going to struggle. You got some veterans on the offensive line, obviously, with the right guard. I think USC's offensive line is very, very underrated. I think as we continue to go forward, I think they'll get more and more and more recognition. Finally, I want to wrap this video up. I want to talk a little bit about how this actually impacts recruiting. You know, people don't talk about this, but this game right here is going to impact recruiting as we kind of go forward. Because USC right now, you know, if you're a wide receiver, if you're a running back, if you're a quarterback, you want to play for Lincoln Riley, 100% fact. But the one thing, if you're a defensive guy, is you might not want to play for USC, right? Because every other coach, you know, if you're going to Alabama and the Alabama coach is talking to you and he's saying, hey, I know you're high on USC, you might be going to USC, but come to Alabama for these reasons, right? You're a defensive tackle. Well, at USC, they don't play defense. They only play offense. They only care about the offensive side. To me, if USC on the defensive side is able to, you know, have success against Michigan, and they've had a lot of success so far as well, but if they continue to have success the way they've been having, and especially against Michigan, the number 18 ranked team, to me, that's going to impact your recruiting. That's going to send a huge, huge, huge signal to every single one of those recruits. I think I had seen an article that USC has one of the best linebackers in the country on a visit. I don't know if it's this week. It might be this week. Don't quote me on that. But, you know, they have some guys that are potentially going to be coming in to USC. And USC's already got a lot of solid commits, right? But, you know, it just sends us a different type of message when on the defensive side you start to dominate a little bit. You know, to me, USC is a powerhouse. I think all of us can agree to that. But I think they're proving it more than ever before this year because now they have a real defense. They have some real playmakers on that defensive side. They had a couple of transfers come over, guys that are actually making an impact this year as well. And I think as the USC Trojans continue to have success, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if these guys make a real push for a national championship. I know last year things didn't kind of go the way USC wanted, but this team is not that same team from last year. There's a lot of changes, and I think good changes, especially on the defensive side. I think USC is a real shot this year to win the national championship. Honestly, if I'm a betting man, there's 3 teams I'm putting my money on. You got Georgia, you got Texas, and you got USC. I put money on USC as well. So let me know what you guys think, man. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. What do you guys think about this matchup coming up? Does Michigan have a chance? Do you guys think that quarterback change will actually make a difference? Let me know down in the comments below. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time with another video.